Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm here with you today to talk about edge-to-edge and more specifically how it fits into React Native ecosystem. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Mathieu. You might know me better as Zuntech. I'm a former software engineer at Swan, and I will be joining Expo next year. I'm also the author of a few packages, React Native, so permission, localize, boot splash. By the way, hands up, who is using one of these? That's not too bad. All right, back to the topic. What exactly is edge-to-edge? It's actually pretty simple. Edge-to-edge means allowing an app to take all of the available space, including the area occupied by the status bar and the navigation bar. This bar became transparent and your app extends underneath them. This is the default behavior on iOS. Unfortunately, it's not the default on Android. But let's pause for a moment to understand how I got interested in this topic and why I'm standing here today. I need to tell you a little story. About maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I was starting a new React Native project, and I got stuck for a moment, staring at all the messy stuff happening during an app launch. There's 3 visible steps. First, a splash screen on a white background showing my app icon, then nothing. The status bar and the navigation bar became opaque. Then finally my app appeared. And ideally, here's how it should go. When the user taps your app icon, the system instantly shows a splash screen, giving the impression of an immediate launch. Meanwhile, in the background, the app actually starts and take over, displaying its own splash screen. And once everything is ready, the app hides the splash screen and the user can start using it. To make this ideal experience possible, we need to use an API that was introduced in Android 12, the splash screen API. Here's what happens when we don't do that. The user taps the app icon. Since we haven't set up a splash screen using the splash screen API, Android shows a default one, which is a white background and our app icon. Our app starts and displays a blank screen, or possibly worst, another splash screen. This is what used to happen with Expo splash screen before, the famous double splash screen issue, you know. And finally, once your app JavaScript is parsed and executed, the app itself appears. Luckily for me, I already had the package to handle splash screen called React Native Boot Splash, so I updated it and I added support for this new API. I also updated the command line tool that comes with it, the one that generates all the images and update the necessary file. And there you have it, a single splash screen with no more intermediate white screen. I thought, all right, I've done my part of the deal. But there was still something bothering me. On the splash screen, the interface is edge-to-edge, full screen. But once your app starts, the status bar and the navigation bar turns opaque. And honestly, it doesn't look very good. I thought, okay, I know how Android designer used to work. So there must be probably somewhere an API that let us reclaim that space. And indeed, this API exists. It's called setDecorFitsSystemWindow, and you pass false. Make sure to remember that name. So at the same time, I created the second package called React Native Bars, which implements this API and aligns Android behavior with iOS. Once it's installed, the interface goes edge-to-edge, and your app status bar and navigation bar became transparent. And that's non-negotiable. No settings to change anything. But very quickly, a new problem appeared. Installing this library, and enabling edge-to-edge seems to break the keyboard behavior as we know it on Android. Here's a little video of what was happening. So nothing, basically. I decided to dig a bit deeper again and came across another new API that lets us control the keyboard in a much cleaner way than before, instead of having, just the on-off effect that makes the whole interface jump. You can animate it so it moves smoothly with the keyboard. Another thing that caught my attention, the API can only be used with edge-to-edge. So it seems that Google really is pushing us with it. And luckily for me this time, there was already a package to that React Native keyboard controller. Big thanks to Kirill, the author. It includes a component similar to React Native keyboard and rounding view, but one that actually works in our case. We add it to our project, and finally, it looks right. So, a little moment of reflection. Even though it requires some knowledge, it seems doable, right? So why back then all the React Native application were edge-to-edge? All the more, so time is running out. The behavior will be enforced with Android 15. If the target SDK version is 35. Back then, React Native target was 34, but we know that it wouldn't last forever. And the answer is actually here. Remember this little line of code? Well, it's impossible using the Android SDK to detect whether it has been called. There's no is decor fitting system window method or something like that. And this creates a huge issue. Any package that deals directly and indirectly with edge-to-edge couldn't check whether your app was actually configured that way. So potentially using a feature from one of this library or component could interfere or even completely disable edge-to-edge in your application. And you know them well. They are usually exposed like this: status bar transparent, navigation bar translucent, etc., etc. Sometimes you need to pass through, but sometimes undefined is a better choice. It really depends on the situation and of what the library is doing on the native side. This means that even if you correctly configure all your dependency, if you forget or misconfigure just one of them, everything could break. The lowest common denominator could take down the whole chain. You might think, that's not so bad, I can do that. But that's only because I haven't shown you how tricky it could get. Here's a more twisted example with Expo Reader version 4. So inside your dependency, inside your non-module, so not even in your application code, there was a status bar component rendered with a hidden prop set to false. So you shouldn't do anything, right? Except that on the native side, it turns out that React Native status bar method was calling setDecor fits system window with true. So it was disabling edge-to-edge. In the end, for React Native app, getting edge-to-edge to actually work felt like a complete blind alignment. So by now you probably get it. Creating and publishing a library like React Native bars is actually the easy part of the problem. The real challenge was getting the ecosystem to catch up. And damn, even if I have a rough idea of what to expect, but I had no clue of all the implications it would have. So to make this possible in the long run, I sat down and think of a plan. Step 1, I rename and adapt React Native bars. The package is now called React Native edge-to-edge to match the naming used by Android. It also aligns its behavior with Android 15, while keeping it compatible all the way down to Android 6. And I also add an Expo plugin. Step 2, it's impossible to detect if the app is H2H, but we can detect the presence of a React Native package, right? So the solution is not one package, it's two, React Native H2H and React Native is H2H, a package that simply detects whether React Native H2H is installed. Since the detection is very simple, React Native is H2H is almost weightless. And this way, it can be used by React Native package author to add a simple check, for example, to adjust certain props or functions so they don't break your app. Step 3, to get a massive adoption across the ecosystem, I need to promote the solution. And ideally meet with other package author to discuss about possible integration on their side. So the plan was perfect, right? Not really. Because despite my many attempts, I got rejected and rejected again, even from React Native London last year. All right, so I need to find another way. And I have my reason. I cannot, migrate the ecosystem alone. It's simply impossible for me to do this because I work on React Native on my free time, the weekend, the evening, so I can't do that alone. And did you imagine if I open like pull request everywhere on every packages, explaining to other package author that we need to join forces, and this has to be done using my package? So it's not impossible, but it's really tough. And to be honest, at this moment, I kinda give up and told myself, okay, I will just never release this. And then Deus Ex Machina. The Expo team, who has been aware of my work behind the scene, got interested in the solution. And it turns out that they were about to release a new SDK in the few weeks and wanted to use the opportunity to start pushing this topic in parallel. So concretely, what does this partnership change? First, Expo 52 was fully compatible and doesn't interfere with React Native H2H. No more little jump during the splash screen step because of a status bar appearing, for example. We fixed all of it. Second, the package and its usage were promoted by Expo, which has a much larger audience than me. Whether it's in the SDK changelog, blog post on the website, or directly in the documentation. And third, Meta was well aware of the initiative, so we can all discuss together. All of that gave us very encouraging initial results. We saw adoption growing steadily across the ecosystem. All the package list here today, you no longer need to configure them. By default, it just works. Even better, if you pass a props that is not needed anymore, you get a small warning saying that it's unnecessary. You can remove it. Also, thanks to discussion with Meta, I was able to add a prop to the modal component, which on Android behave in a different context. This way, you can have H2H modal too. The change was merged and became available in React Native 77. Step 4, enable H2H for every new project created using Expo 63. So with Expo 53, we added a new parameter in the configuration and H2H enable. It was true by default for new project and well, true for Expo Go, of course, because you cannot configure that. For user upgrading for Expo 52, the value remained false. Of course, you could opt in, opt out at that time. Step 5, open a pull request to add H2H directly within React Native itself. It was merged and released in React Native 81. The pull request included a new Gradle property called H2H enable, which, when set to true, disable the background color and translucent props on the status bar component because they don't work anymore. For status bar translucent and navigation bar translucent props on the modal component, and expose an edge-to-edge constant on the device info module. And at this stage, we had to switch from React Native edge-to-edge to this new gradle property while minimizing the change required in your code base. So I just updated React Native is edge-to-edge so that it supports both the package and the new built-in React Native method. Step 3, the release of Expo 54, which enable edge-to-edge by default, and now it cannot be disabled anymore. Since React Native was updated, Expo was able to use the new edge-to-edge gradle property and remove React Native edge-to-edge from their code base. Step 1, it's a bonus one. I published a package called React Native Navigation Bar, which mirrors the API of the status bar component. It lets you control the style of Android button navigation bar. And finally, the last step, once adoption is fully complete, I will deprecate React Native edge-to-edge since it will have no longer a reason to exist. And I will push for using the built-in property instead. And that's all for me. Thank you for listening.